Joining us from the internet is Jael and Troy, two members from the band Miscegenation and More. They just released a self-titled full-length, currently streaming on SparkMag and available for digital download at the end of July on Ethos by Noise Records. So, what is Miscegenation and More?
Hey, what is Miscegenation and More? It is a very long word that people are often very confused when they hear. I was also very confused when I first heard it myself a couple years back. But just the literal definition of miscegenation is it used to be used in a derogatory manner to describe when people of different racial categories would have sex. And that was termed as this, horrible thing, because oftentimes it was mostly talking about like whites, so people racially categorized as white, intermingling with people categorized as, everything else outside of whiteness. So it often was used to create this sense of something is happening to the white nation, and it was used to pander to the fears of like racial contamination. So it was used a lot. I mean, it's still used a lot now by a lot of white supremacists, but it has been historically used by people concerned with biology as this essence of what makes us human. So that's partly what miscegenation means.
And then there's more, right? So, thinking about our band, right? So we're a band from Southern California, from San Diego, Tijuana border region, more specifically.
Yeah.
And we're a band made up of, we have a type of grouping of people that, prior to this era, in the days in which, interracial mixing was actually legally prohibited.
Right.
This type of makeup of a band could not exist, considering the type of racial categories in which our members fall into. And so we're thinking about, we have miscegenation, right? Here we have an example, a modern day example of, I guess, what would be considered miscegenation at one point.
But can I say something about that?
And we want more. We want more than just this type of makeup. We want a...
I want to say something about that.
Do it.
Yeah, because a lot of the what the band is also doing, it's referring to an imaginary that some parts of, or some groups in America, right, have of what it means to be in the United States now, with people who don't look like you, who don't eat the same foods that you eat, or who don't speak some of the native languages that we do speak. So it's not necessarily claiming the term in its racist roots, like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, like we should have like racial purity. It's also a way to think about these categories and how these categories they're very real. They're only real because of the social meaning and historical meaning that race has in the United States, not because biologically we carry any inherent truth. So I just wanted to interject there because it's such a crazy term. I think we could talk about it for hours.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, the more part, right? It's taken from there's a couple different things. One is just in post-modernity and late capitalist consumer society, we are generally bombarded by this type of yearning for more, right? You're advertised.
More, it's not
there's
enough.
Always more,
you need
right?
more, you need more.
You can get this like, broom, right? And then we'll give you more. We'll give you a mop too if you call now, or there's always more to be had, right? If you just hurry up and like,
and buy it,
right? There's always going to be something more. So that's kind of like a play on that type of sentiment, but also thinking about the and more, right? Which was
in a more serious.
Yeah, in a more serious sense, right? Thinking about, the multicultural moment, right? In which things like, interracial mixing, has become, more acceptable than it was,
obviously 50
years ago, right? So,
but it's in a very superficial way without confronting the actual tension.
Right, and so the more part, right, is supposed to imply this kind of, necessity of a radical intervention, in the expropriation of resources and redistribution of resources in a way that is appropriate for the type of legalized, racialized exclusion from all of the wealth that has been generated in the U.S. empire.
Cool, totally. Well, how is your songwriting process, musically and lyrically?
So we already live in a reality that is almost like fiction. It's it's very strange, the moment that we live in. The last 10 years have been very, very strange in terms of national politics, but also the kinds of changes, the way technology has really penetrated our everyday life, and so things like that. So we're just, really thinking about this kind of surrealism around us, but it's reality, so it's not surreal, it's actual reality, and thinking about how do we take that and almost like represent it differently through our own experiences as a multiracial band with members that have had very different experiences growing up in California for the most part, because we all come from California, different parts, but have spent half a decade in Southern California, in San Diego specifically. But yeah, so from my perspective, because I write a lot of the lyrics, it's mostly trying to take that reality that is full of violence and full of just, I feel it's a very dehumanizing moment that we live in. I even though I'm part of that generation that really embraced technology, when we were young, right, we were introduced to computers like super young, and we were promised all of these things, how, technology will bring you closer and you're going to be able to talk to people, in other parts of the world, and this like super utopic vision of it. But I find that, now a couple of decades afterwards, I look back in the last like 3 decades of my life and I'm like, wait a minute, what has technology actually done for me? In reality, so trying to, that's just one example, right? When I say, we write songs about the realities that we find ourselves in, and try to interpret it through our personal experiences. And a lot of the songs have also been written after we've had conversations amongst ourselves as a band. So we, talk about everything pretty much. I mean, you can...
Yeah, I mean, we have songs that deal with questions about, the essential role that women's informal labor in the third world plays in reproducing the capitalist system, specifically through providing them, reproductive means for factory workers and peasants in the global south, where most of the world's commodities are produced through the raw resource extraction and whatnot, and the way in which female labor, right, is essential to reproducing these people that go and do that work, their labor in the house, right? Things like these types of questions, right, that we're really trying to think about as a band. And as far as our actual like music, I guess song, I don't know, the music, the instrumental part, right, of the music. Very few of the songs, I think maybe only two out of the 11 songs that we've written have been kind of written prior to a practice. We've really tried to do everything together as a group, just kind of getting a feel for one another. I mean, a lot of it is also a product of, the band could not exist in any other way than it does in this exact makeup. Like none of the members could actually be replaced for it to appropriately work. All of our strengths happen to play perfectly into each other's weaknesses as well. So it's really all just like a collective writing process in which, like, you know, we really try to decenter the individual in every way in the music making process.
Well, that's cool. How did you all meet? How did the members all get together?
We mostly met one another through some sort of subversive leftist organization in which we were participating.
Subversive left. We met organizing in various fronts, from solidarity networks to
building occupations,
you know, education coalitions that we, you know, organize the students. So it's all kinds of things. This is hyperbolic a bit, subversive. We're not in
I mean, like the first context that I think some of us had was that Jael and Chad, our drummer, were part of the same department at the University of California, San Diego.
Yeah, that was like way back in
2010,
yeah,
2011.
So we met. Yeah, Chad was one of the first people. I left the US for a while and then came back. And then he was one of the first people that I met when I came back to the US. And we really hit it off through music. I mean, that was aside from, we met because, you know, we had enrolled in a program at the university, but we just really hit it off talking about music, and we realized we had a lot of shared interests. And we also then organized various things through you know, also being preoccupied with the neoliberalization of higher education. So just how impossible it is becoming for a lot of us to stay in like post. So after, you know, you complete a bachelor and you want to continue on with higher education, just how difficult it is to actually, you know, push through a program, especially when you're, you know, first gen and you're like working class. So there were a lot of points, you know, of overlap, and we met each other at the union as well.
Yeah, Jael and I met one another at
graduate student union meeting.
In a union meeting in which I was actually having charges pressed against me by the union bureaucracy, and Jael read them aloud, complete with the typographical errors and everything, verbatim. It was pretty great. What else? I met Peter actually in a group called the San Diego Solidarity Network, which is modeled after the Seattle Solidarity Network.
Peter, our guitarist.
Yeah, Peter's our guitarist. And then I met Jack in a building occupation that lasted for about 2 months of a library at UC San Diego, one of the libraries that they were going to close. And all of us never, I mean, we had, you know, we knew that everyone liked music, but we never went to concerts with one another. It wasn't really like, they weren't friendships that developed around like a music scene or anything, right? Like, these are people that
we would get together for other things, but then we'd end up talking about music.
This happened for like 5 years. That it was like that. And then we're finally like, you know, let's just start like a band together and like see where it goes. And
also, I mean, you asked previously about how the songwriting process works. And the thing is, we all have such very different skills. I'm not musically trained. One of our guitarists, Jack, is, for example, so he understands music in terms of like theory, and he gets really heady about it. I can't always follow. But there's this like, it all comes together very nicely. Because of that also, I think there's just a lot of overlaps in interests and energy. We're also really, you know, every time we, you know, meet each other, there was this creativity, right, that we sensed that we could bring out in each other, but we actually never did it until we just one day we're like, fuck it, like we have to do it now because we're all together in, you know, the city in San Diego. So before life pulls us apart, let's do something.
Cool. But Miscegenation and More is currently on hiatus. What are y'all doing right now? What's the next step for y'all?
So we're on hiatus because various life paths have brought some of us to different parts of the world.
And the precarious employment situation in the United States, very specifically, the difficulty that, you know, we all can relate to. A lot of us can relate to, unless we're trust fund babies. That, you know, it's very hard to make a living these days. So for that reason, the band we are all in different places. At the moment, we're not all in the United States. And for family reasons, for work mostly. And at the moment, we're just waiting it out, because we'll meet up again in the US eventually.
Yeah, probably like in another year for all of us to reconvene back in the US, and we'll see if we can, you know, start making music again, because we really want to play more.
Cool. Definitely. And I hope that, you know, the geographical universe will align and we'll get to see y'all play again very soon. Any last words?
No, thank you. Thanks, Elliot.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. It's been a pleasure to play with you too.
Yes, thank you.
A couple of times that we played together in Riverside.
Yes.
Joe was with you as well.
Yeah, basement shows, house shows, all that cool stuff. Well, thank you. Jael and Troy, two members of the band Miscegenation and More. They just released a self-titled full-length, currently streaming on Spark Mag and available for digital download at the end of July on Ethos by Noise Records. Well, thank you, Jael and Troy. It's been a pleasure. Hope to see y'all soon. Keep on doing the good stuff and fighting the good fight. Cool. Thanks.